Hey everybody, welcome back. Rip City Real Talk. Craig Moshkow, Anthony Blaylock back after a decent little hiatus.
Yeah, we had a couple of weeks. I had COVID, so we skipped our normal rotation after. So feeling good. Still have a slight cough, case anybody's wondering. I know you all care about my health. I'm good. I'm fine. Not doing as bad as you. Like, I'll take COVID any day over the worst stub toe known to man.
Yeah, I gave myself turf toe today on the metal door jam. I've never had it before. I've always made fun of athletes who get turf toe, and I thought, oh, you can play through that. It really hurts, actually. It's actually quite painful. So I'm washed. I'm old and washed.
Yep. Fun fact for you fans: he actually stubbed his toe walking outside. Now he hasn't gone inside since. That's why he's recording outside. He actually got stuck out there because he can't walk anymore.
I wish, man. It's just nice
turf
tonight.
toe on a piece of metal. How ironic!
Turf toe. So washed.
Yep. So we're obviously battling through some injuries of our own. Not necessarily as bad as the Portland injuries since our last pod. People just dropping left and right. I mean, Anthony Simons isn't probably playing the rest of the year. He might come back at the end. Sounds like Hart's probably done for the year. I mean, he's got the same issue as Anthony had. That's what they're calling it, at least. So he's probably done. And officially announced Damian Lillard is not coming back. Big surprise there, huh?
Yeah, I think expert tanking by the Blazers, and I think that this is exactly what the organization should be doing right now with nothing left to play for. I think you shut everything down and get ready for next year. You need your pick. I'd be committed to the tank right now, and it's hard for fans. It's hard to watch. I haven't watched a lot of, especially the start of games. It's what's the point? I'll kind of watch the fourth quarter or third quarter, but it's, you're not seeing a cohesive team that's going to play together next year. So what's really the point? I mean, if we have to sit Josh Hart and we have to sit Anthony because they're almost too good at this point. They're playing too good at basketball for a tanking team.
Agreed. I'm kind of looking at it as it was almost like NFL preseason in a weird way. Because, the NBA preseason is not quite the same. They have a couple guys that come in, that aren't going to be on the roster. For the most part, you see the guys playing most of those games, and it's more of a really good warm-up for the season. Whereas the NFL, it's a lot more like tryouts, right? Every week, players are getting cut. They have to go from their whatever down to 80, down to 53, or whatever it ends up being, right? So these guys that are going there, most of them trying to make, special teams, for instance, or whatever. I kind of see Portland in that same situation right now with a lot of these guys. These guys are potentially playing for maybe not necessarily a roster spot next year, because only a couple of them are going to maybe come back and get a roster spot, but at least to be on Portland's radar for, things like injuries down the road, right? Who are you going to give a two-way to? Who are you going to pull up for a 10-day contract? Who are you going to put into a G League and really monitor and pull out of? Things like that. I think Watford's probably safe. I think Greg Brown is under a rookie contract. He'll be around for a couple of years. But a lot of these other guys, the Keon Johnsons, the Hughes, the Brandon Williams, those kinds of guys are really just playing to show what they have. Maybe not necessarily for Portland, but for a lot of other teams to see, like, oh yeah, he was all right in that little stretch that they had. Let's bring him into camp or whatever. So I think that's where it's been fun. But as far as the team goes, I don't like to call it a straight up tank, but it is. I mean, that's what's happening. You're resting guys that don't need to play for no reason, whether they have injuries that are severe enough to keep them out at this point. They probably don't. They probably could be out there playing. If we were in playoff contention, Hart, Anthony, probably even Dame at this point would be suiting up.
I think so.
An 8, 9, 7 seed, somewhere in there. So.
Yeah, Dame's shooting practice jumpers like in the arena. People are taking pictures of him. He's I think healthy enough to where if we were in that, let's say 8 or 9 spot, he'd be battling to come back, and Dame's not going to be one that says, oh, I'm not going to play. But yeah, I mean, Drew Eubanks just got another 10-day deal, and the only reason he's getting 10-day deals is because they don't want to cut anybody to make room for him on the roster. So they're using COVID exceptions, which everybody knows. He's going to continue to get 10-day contracts for the rest of the season. I think he's played well. Everybody's been intrigued by some of these young guys. I think Hughes has popped at times. Keon Johnson has popped at times. I think Greg Brown still has super untapped potential, but golly, I just feel bad for Chauncey and like what he's been handed this year. We were really critical of a lot of stuff that happened in the offseason, but a lot of this tanky stuff is not Chauncey's fault.
No, you can't help Damian Lillard. I'm not going to say getting hurt necessarily because he's been dealing with it for a while, but you can't help that this is the time where we're like, you know what, let's rest him for the year, get him right. Trading CJ. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that came into play here for Chauncey, but the roster had to be blown up regardless. We've been talking about it, so it's kind of cool to see him get to work with the young guys. But I mean, realistically, it's a fresh start next year for him, right? We don't count.
Yes.
I mean, this isn't his first year in Portland. It is and isn't. I mean, we don't know what's going on in practice behind the scenes. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff that he's working on. Guys are studying his style and all that, but his coaching is really going to take effect, I think, next year when you actually have to deal with a healthy Dame, whoever you're putting next to him at shooting guard, whatever forwards we end up with them, we're going to get into that. And then most likely a returning use of Nurkic, right? I mean, you're going to get the whole band back together, ideally healthy. Nasir Little will be back, and that kind of stuff comes into play. So we'll really get to see what he's made of as far as a coach next year. I don't hold this year against him at all.
Absolutely not. Speaking of, you just mentioned somebody I forgot about. Speaking of Nurkic, what did he had an exciting week. What did you think of that interaction with him and the fan? I mean, we don't know what was said, right? But what did you think of that interaction?
Allegedly, what was said was the guy, said something about his grandma, who, for those fans who don't know, passed away last year. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm on the fence with it. Right, I'm happy he defended himself because that's the human thing to do with somebody. Especially, I can tell you right now, somebody came up and said something about my dad. I probably would do that if I was some random stranger and I didn't know him and I didn't take it as like just joking. You make light of negative things to try to make them seem better in your own world. But when somebody random like that is talking smack about a loved one who passed away after and maybe the kid didn't know. We don't know what the situation was there, but I don't really blame him for reacting the way he did. I mean, they are professionals. They get paid a lot of money. It's their job. But at the same time, I mean, I don't expect some customer service clerk at the Fred Meyer to hold his tongue any more than I expect Nurk to, right? You're a human being at the end of the day. And this isn't the first time we've had some bad fan interactions. I mean, LeBron's been in his fair share of scuffles. Of course, LeBron. Everybody hates LeBron, so everybody talks to LeBron. I get that. And Russell Westbrook recently has had some issues. He had the issue a couple of years back with the person that used some racist terms against him in Utah. And that stuff just can't be tolerated,
Yeah. I don't blame Nurk. I mean, honestly, in this situation, I think fans should be held to a certain standard. I think that fan was trying to get Nurk goaded into some interaction, and it worked. It worked for him, but that's sad that he has to live that life. I mean, he's basically just a living version of an internet troll, right? Just sitting there insulting somebody who has more clout and more fame and more status than him because he's jealous of Nurk. He's jealous of these athletes. So he's probably some 5'8" guy who goes to all the games and trash talks everybody. And I think it's disgusting behavior, and I think that fans should be better. But they won't. I mean, that's just how humans are. But I don't blame Nurk at all for what he did. And I know that the league will punish him, but to me, it sends a pretty strong message that if Nurkic was in my face, I probably would have been shivering in my boots. And I'm sure that guy was too, but
I can tell you right now, if you said Nurkic walked up and took my cell phone and tossed it away, I just feel like that's your cell phone now. Like,
well, you saw him in person.
Like, I'll go get a new one.
He's
out.
Intimidating.
Don't destroy me. Don't stick your brothers on me like Jokic. Don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Right.
I don't know, man. He only got fined like $40,000. That's, I mean, maybe a lot to him. I don't know, but probably not very much.
Well, and that brings into perspective. I mean, since the COVID bubble season, what players actually need to be there, right? Do players need to be there to cheer on their teams? It's like, if Nurkic is going to get fined for going to games and interacting with fans like this, should he even be there in street clothes? So I don't know. It's a whole debate, but to me, it seems like the athletes are set up for failure at this point.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I mean, whether or not they should be there. I
want to root their team on.
And help, it's kind of their job in a weird way.
Right.
Like, they still need to be involved with the team so you can watch and see how things are going, how coaching is going. But yeah, the other side of that is obviously cheering your team on. So I don't know. It's interesting to me that a fan would talk smack to the guy in street clothes. Like, he's not even out there playing. Like, what? He just happened to walk by and he's like, "This is it, man. I'm going to shoot my shot."
It was stupid.
The whole thing is kind of a joke to me. But
it is.
It's. I'm glad he stuck up for himself. I hope players continue to do so. I don't know about touching the guy or grabbing the phone in this case and throwing.
And that's where I think he knew where to stop.
Yeah, and that's the line that had to be drawn. Like, I have no problem with them getting in the kid's face and making them poop his pantalones, because if Nurkic walked up to me after I said something, I'd probably that's it. Like, I'd start writing my will there, then and there on my phone. Like, I'm dead. But I don't know. I hope the Pacers organization does something about it. I hope that they get banned. Obviously, I hope
Sure.
that something comes to punish him. I haven't heard of anything happening to the fan, except for him getting negative feedback and going private on his Instagram or whatever.
Yep.
So that's the one thing I hope for. I mean, Nurkic got punished. I think the fan needs to get punished for that kind of behavior, but
Right.
it is what it is at this point. Eventful, though.
I don't know. It was something in a really slow news week, I'll tell you that.
Yep. Another cool update, by the way. I don't know if you got to see the clip of the guy who hit the putt from.
I did.
I was there last night live. I watched this happen, and one of these days I'm going to be lucky enough to save the memory on my phone to show the fans your epic $250 blind free throw shot on the first try, and being there for that and the crowd getting up and cheering. This was probably the second. If the arena would have been full. And not like half empty.
It would have been amazing.
The tank. I think that would have been just as good as your free throw. But my goodness, if anybody hasn't seen that, go. It's on SportsCenter. That's how good it was. Go just YouTube or find. I don't even know what you would search. Dude hits putt, full court putt. The tiniest little, the tiniest.
I've watched it 4 or 5 times. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I spilled beer on the people that I was with. I mean, I got up, I was like, woo, and it just spilled everywhere.
You won 50 grand, I think.
Yeah, I won 50 grand.
Oh, man.
50 grand he won. And that's the kind of thing that the tank season needs, let me tell you, because there's been nothing to cheer for. I mean,
how was the energy?
In the arena is just not there. And that's the first time I've seen the crowd cheer for something in months. So that was exciting stuff. So I had to talk about the Nurk thing, and I had to go a little more positive with the dude getting the 50 grand on the most epic putt I've ever seen. I get to go do those things out in the stands in the arena, and I face plant on my face on a blow up course, and I don't get one Name That Tune song get blown out like each other person had 3 or 4 right, and I've been sitting there with a big fat 0. That's what I get to do.
At least you weren't in the tic-tac-toe game. Remember that?
Yes, that'll never go away. Anybody
that was brutal
knows about the epic tic-tac-toe game. So shout out to that guy. Just want to make sure he made it to the pod. I'm sure he's a loyal follower, and
for sure,
he's proud that we gave him a quick shout. So
yeah, what else is going on?
Well, that's pretty much the small updates, right? We talked about, obviously, Eubanks got his 4th 10-day contract. We talked about Dame being out, so a lot of little things there. The Nurk phone thing, which most people know by now. And so now we can kind of start to dive into the meat of the pod. We have a couple different things to talk about this week. First and foremost, the big rumor that came out, right? I mean, it's been a rumor probably for a while. It came up during trade deadline. It kind of died off, obviously, when trade deadline passed, and now it's back up again. But Portland is expected to be aggressive in making offers for Jerami Grant. All right. You know me. I'm huge on the Jerami Grant train. I'm all about the Jerami Grant train. I'm going to get into why in a moment, but I want to hear your thoughts on Jerami Grant coming to Portland.
Yeah, so first of all, it comes out from insiders that Portland's going to be aggressive. And then within 3 minutes of each other, Nurkic and Josh Hart posted a picture of them with Jerami Grant, which was dubious, to say the least. But yeah, I think they want him here. I think he would probably like to come here. I don't think he wants to be in Detroit anymore on this rebuilding team. He's a guy who wants to contend. It makes sense from a basketball perspective, but I do have concerns about this trade for sure.
Yeah, let's hear him.
So the main thing is, all right, the rumor is that we're going to send off the Pelicans pick, which is probably going to be lower than our pick at this point in the standings, right? The Blazers are going to have a better pick. We'll retain it because we're not going to make the play-in. Let's say, hypothetically, the Spurs catch the Pellies and knock them out, or the Pelicans lose in the play-in, either way, and we get their pick. And it's probably going to be like, I don't know, 8 through 12 somewhere. That's the best odds that pick can really probably hold. So you're going to trade that pick for Jerami Grant. That within itself does not bother me. I love Jerami Grant, and I think he would fit very well as a better Rocco with more offensive juice for this team. He's also a lot younger than Rocco is when we acquired him. So Jerami Grant makes a ton of sense from a logical on the defensive fit and the offensive usage that he would be looking for, which is fairly minimal, right? I don't think Jerami Grant would command a lot of the offense. But what I do have concerns with is you're going to trade a first-round pick for him. Match some kind of salary, and then pay him $24 to $25 million per year on a 3 or 4 year deal. You're probably going to commit like $100 million to him. That to me scares me because that locks him in as either our second best player or competing to be our second best player behind either Anthony Simons or Josh Hart. So I don't like it from a financial perspective. I think is my biggest concern. If he was cheaper and he was easier to slot in financially, I think I'd be more excited about it. I have no questions about the basketball fit.
Right, and that makes complete sense. Next year wouldn't do anything to us because
Okay.
we would use the trade exception.
Okay.
So that would cover the one we got from CJ
2022.
would cover, the 20 mil. I mean, they'll
Or
cover
3.
most of it. They might have to move something out here and there, pay a little bit extra, but whatever. So that's pretty much a done deal. It is the extension that is a thing going forward that I can see a lot of people have brought up, like how much you're going to pay him, and it kind of comes down to me. It kind of comes down to Amph. I mean, what he's going to command, if he's going to get anywhere from 25 to 30 mil, or if you can keep him around the 18, 19, 20 mil, you know, the same thing that Trent got, for instance, kind of in that same range. So if Amph ends up drawing too much, then it really hampers you regardless, because you're going to be in a financial situation that's already going to be tough to get out of. But I do think that he would be worth, to me, he's worth 25 mil a year. I don't know about going up more than that. I don't even know about a long-term deal. I'm cool with giving him, 25 to 30 for 3 years. I was talking to some fans this week, and I think my big thing for Portland is going to be a 2 to 3, 4-year maximum window of Dame, right? We've talked about it a couple times already. His play style is gonna die off eventually. You get a little older, your muscles aren't quite the same. You can't attack the rim like you used to. Taking those deep threes takes a little more out of you than it used to do, etc. And he's only gonna get worse on defense. But I do think he's still a superstar in the next couple of years, and I think you need to do whatever you can to surround him with talent to really maximize those upcoming years. And for Portland, Jerami Grant is just he doesn't grow on trees. You know what I mean? You don't find 6'8", 6'10", those forwards just out there available for trade. We're fortunate enough that Detroit is in a rebuild mode to be willing to even give him up, because he's the only thing that's costing them any money. You would really think that they'd like to keep him a little longer and try to let Cade Cunningham come up with him and do that. But Detroit's like, no, we're done with him. They don't want to pay him the money that they're going to have to pay him. So be it. That's their loss. But for Portland, you just don't have that opportunity. I know he's not Kawhi Leonard. I know he's not Paul George. I know some guys that have been available in the last couple of years at the forward position. But you got to take it when you can get it, because free agents, it's hard enough to get anybody here. And next year, especially when you have the exception to bring him in for virtually nothing, you have to try to take advantage of that. And then you deal with the extension when you get to that point.
Okay, so question.
Yeah.
Would you do the Pelicans first, not ours, the Pelicans first plus Nasir Little for Jerami Grant?
I don't know about Nasir per se, but I would absolutely do the Pelicans. I mean, what you trade back really will depend on a lot of stuff. It depends on what they're going to want, because again, you don't really have to match salaries for them.
They'll probably want young assets, right?
Right.
In addition to
for them, it's going to be the pick. That's going to be the biggest thing. It's all they really asked for. And I'm going to show you real quick. Let's see if I can get this up.
Yeah.
Share screen.
The only reason I say Nasir is because I think he's going to lose a big role if Jerami Grant comes into this team as the kind of tweener 3-4 wing defender. So that's why I say, would you include Nasir? Because he's probably going to Grant's going to eat his minutes even if we don't trade him.
So here's something for you. Can you see this?
No, add it to the stream. You'll see it. There you go. Got it.
You can see it now?
Yeah, I think so.
Should have practiced this a bit more.
Okay. Yep. No, I got it.
All right. So you can see this, right?
Yeah.
This is the draft picks that I imagine the Pelicans are going to be in this range. This is 9, 10, and 11.
Okay.
Since 2012 to 2019. I didn't do the last couple of years because I really wanted to go 3 years.
Okay.
And getting a guy when the guy's starting to potentially be at that point where we know what that guy's gonna be, right? 3 years. It's about that. And then I went back just to go 2012 to give us a really good window. So out of this list, and again, these are picks 9, 10, and 11 in their respective drafts. How many of these guys are you taking over Jerami Grant? I mean, there's a handful, right? Sabonis. Yeah. There's Miles Turner, CJ.
Kawhi in 2012, maybe.
In 2018 had Mikal Bridges, Shai Alexander. Those aren't terrible.
No,
but I mean, you've already had Justice Winslow. You have him on the team. You've had DSJ on your team. You've had Zach Collins on your team. I mean, you've seen a lot of these guys play. That some of them have already been Blazers. How many of these guys do you take over Jerami Grant?
I would say there's 4 names. So Kawhi, Sabonis, probably.
It's not Kawhi, by the way.
That's not. Oh, that's Myers.
That's
oh my
Myers.
God.
Yep. Remember, this is.
Oh
this
my
is,
God.
9, 10, and 11. Yeah, not Kawhi. I wish.
My God. I forgot about Myers Leonard.
That
Okay.
was the Damian Lillard draft.
So Sabonis, CJ, Bridges, and Shai are the only 4 I'd take.
Maybe Miles Turner.
2017, Zach Collins. I mean, he's playing really well for the Spurs right now.
Yeah.
So annoying.
So that's why I bring that up. All right, I'm going to stop sharing
Miles
now.
Turner.
Stopping the share.
I mean, I get it. I do. I don't think that pick is as God, I don't know how to put it. I don't think that pick is as valuable as people think. I do think you can find gems at that spot, but most teams have missed in that 9-10 swinging for the fences pick. The Clippers hit it with Shai, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah, and I bring that up because a lot of the arguments I've seen online are you don't give up. You have 2 lottery picks. You don't give up a high first round draft pick for a guy like Jerami Grant, a forward who can give you 20 to 30 on a given night when he's hot, who can drive, and can really play good defense. I know his last couple of years his stats have been a little weaker, but he's in Detroit for goodness sakes. Nobody plays good in Detroit. That's why they don't stay there.
Right.
But I mean, it's just there's no energy. They don't win. Like there's no willing to compete. You take Jerami Grant and you put him in a competitive team situation with Damian Lillard as your leader, the motor center rocking. Ideally, you're back to winning games with a healthy Dame. Anthony playing it up high level, hopefully. You get all those things combined, and that's where Jerami Grant can really thrive. I think the energy that he can bring to come in can really just take advantage of that atmosphere and be right back to being productive. Not to mention, you don't need him to play power forward, where a lot of teams have put him. I really think he could slide to small forward depending on what you get in the draft. And that's where the Blazers' first pick comes into play, and we're going to kind of get into that in a moment. But that's one to show people who are complaining about giving up a potential first-round pick for Jerami Grant. That's been the market. There's been a couple hits. The Pacers have been super lucky. I mean, good grief getting both of those 2 bigs.
Yep.
But overwhelmingly, it has been bad. It is not not bad. These guys have been had fine NBA careers, but not at the level of what Jerami Grant is, especially not for this team.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, it's going to happen. I do think that it's basically a foregone conclusion because Jerami Grant needs to be on a contending team and a team that can pay him the money and a team that he has a pretty definitive role. And I think the Blazers, outside of Damian Lillard, he's probably going to command the most touches. I get Anthony Simons. I do. But something that you and I have been about this whole year is Anthony Simons is really good when Dame and CJ don't play or when he's ball dominant for 50 touches a game. I think people are overestimating slotting Anthony Simons into the CJ role and him dropping 25 to 30 a night. He's a lot more ball dominant than people think.
Yeah, a lot of people keep telling me that, he's a future all-star. We don't know that. The only time he's played good is this year with Dame being out. Dame's going to come back and be the point guard, which means Anthony's going to have to slide the shooting guard, play a little more off ball.
Right.
Dame is not really a great passer when it comes to that. He's a great corner hitter.
Doesn't kick out well.
He can hit guys for threes. I mean, he gets 7-8 assists a game, sure, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to hit you cutting to the rim, which kind of puts Anthony out in the corner a lot more, just on the 3-point line a lot more. I mean, he's still going to get his moments. They're probably going to run him a little more like they did with CJ. It's hard to tell because this isn't Stotts anymore. We don't know how often Anthony's going to play without Dame on the court.
Sure.
What Chauncey's going to do with that role. But either way, you're right. He's not going to have the ball in his hands. I just worry and call this a prediction right now. I worry he's going to slink back to more of just a 3-point shooter. And that's fine. I mean, 3-point shooters are great. And when they're on, and it's super fun. But when they're cold, if they're not giving you a lot of much, I mean, that's kind of where it hurts you. And that's where Jerami Grant's never going to be like that. He's never going to be like that. He's going to be an opportunistic scorer, and he's going to at least give you defensive stats on a night-in, night-out basis and be able to lock up. I won't say lock up, but he'll be able to at least take on the role of guarding the other team's best wing. Whereas
I agree.
Dame and Amp, again, we've talked about this. They're not going to be the defensive juggernauts we're going to need. You're going to rely on offense a lot more. You have to try to find that defensive guy to put in with those two.
Yeah, I think him at the 3 makes a ton of sense because you would add size. I do think it would be a struggle to figure out what you're going to do with Josh Hart at that point because people are just definitely saying you've got to start Anthony Simons. I'd be more inclined to bring Simons off the bench and play hard at the 2, because then you have such a bigger, more defensively rugged lineup. But whatever.
I mean, I don't mind Hart coming off the bench either.
Yeah.
I know that seems
For
fun.
his
And I don't even mind letting
money.
Hart go at that point. You bring in Jerami Grant. If you're going to talk about bringing Jerami Grant, I mean, I think you keep Hart because Grant, again, with the exceptions, not going to have a big cost aspect of him for the next year. Whereas Hart's, he's not guaranteed after this year, so it kind of makes sense to let him come in and keep his 13 mil. But I don't know. I mean, Hart's fine, but I'd Jerami Grant over Josh Hart. I'm sorry, but that's where that comes. If you come into that kind of a decision, you're basing it off of that, you go Jerami Grant every time.
Yeah, I definitely get it.
It's an interesting aspect, and the only reason I say that he would play that he would potentially play small forward is because the Blazers have such a good pick right now that I really feel like they're going to move and get a power forward. But there are some guys in this upcoming draft that are in the Blazers range that I do think are going to be available to play small forward for you out there with Jerami Grant slating to power forward.
Yeah.
Still is just fine.
Let me pull them up real quick. Just kind of a top like 10 to 12 because those are the only prospects we really care about. Obviously, Jaden Ivey's out. I mean, he's a shooting guard. But, I mean, okay, so Chet Holmgren has his own game. I mean, the Blazers fans have vetted this enough, I think. He's a little thin. He's got Durant and Giannis-like qualities, but he's obviously got a lot of work to go to get there. Jabari Smith, I think, would be a dream, but I think he's going to go probably top 3, and I'm not 100% sure the Blazers pick is going to fall there, even with good lottery odds. And then the rest of the names are kind of a mystery because they kind of interchange depending on what site you're looking at.
Yeah, so it gets a little interesting. So we're gonna talk about these guys a little more, obviously, as we get into draft talk. But realistically, a lot of the ESPN and a lot of the prospects I see really have in the Blazers range that kind of 5, 4, 6, 7, maybe 8. But you start looking at a lot of these guys, and you got the AJ Griffin, you got Jabari Smith, which is unlikely. I've heard Paolo, I'm probably going to say his name wrong. Yeah, Benchero. AJ Griffin is another one that's come up, and I really like Keegan Murray. So those are kind of the names that we're going to really be watching, is those 4s, right? Because you're right. Ivy, I'm assuming that they're not going to look at Benedict Mathurin. I like him, but he's 6'6". He's more of a shooting guard that they kind of have labeled in some sites as a small forward, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
But realistically, those 4 to 5 forwards are really going to be the guys to watch for Portland.
Last thing the Blazers need to do is draft Mathurin and try to slot him in at like small forward, and he's playing out of position.
Exactly, right? So you're really looking at probably 5 guys. Because I've heard a lot of Duran's name. People had him in a couple mocks of that 5, 6, 7 range. He's probably the top center in the draft, unless you count Chet as a center. Is kind of but I don't see us going after Durant. I really think they're going to run back Nurk. I really do. It may not be everybody's favorite, but he's not going to cost you too much, I don't think. And again, his relationship with Damon, he's a good center on both ends of the court. Not great, good enough to where I'm not taking a rookie center at this point in the draft. I've explained this. Somebody asked us a question on Twitter, and I kind of answered that for him. I just don't see Durant being the guy that Portland's going to look at. I really think it's going to be Keegan Murray, Jabari Smith, Benchero, AJ Griffin. Those 4, to me, are going to be those guys that are going to be in that range for Portland. That really is going to be kind of what we're looking at. And we're going to do more profiles on them as we get a little deeper into it to kind of let people know. Once we know where the Blazers pick is, I'll start doing more. We'll start doing more stuff on the mocks and really kind of getting into each player. But out of those 4 guys, I was kind of interested to see what they've been doing in the tournament.
Hit me.
To me, that's the big stage. I know they have conference championships and stuff like that, and these guys have made those careers. But I wanted to kind of see what these guys were doing in the tournament. So we've been following them along. Most of them are out. Duke is still in it, I believe. So they still have AJ Griffin and Benchero. But Jabari Smith is done. And then you have Murray's out. So I kind of want to talk about the 4 of those guys and just let you know what's going on with them. So I'll start with the 2 Duke players. They played 3 games so far. So AJ Griffin, I've just not been hot on this guy. He's my least favorite Duke forward out of the 2 potential forwards that we're going to get. He's known, I guess, as a big-time shooter. That's kind of his thing. But he's averaged 10 points and about 6 rebounds in 3 games. For a Duke team that's played 3 games now, I just feel like for a guy that's a top lottery pick, he'd be doing a little bit more. And then there was Banchero, who's actually looked awesome. I really like this kid. I don't know about him making it to Portland, but if we have a chance to get him, I love the game he has. I don't care for Duke players as much, but I do like what he comes in. He's been averaging about 19.3 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, getting steals and blocks.
Yeah.
Doing a little bit of everything, and he's shooting a really good percentage, which is great for the high anxiety pressure of a NCAA tournament game.
Yeah.
So that's those two.
Sure.
And then Keegan Murray, the poor guy only got 1 game in the tourney. Right? They got knocked out, but he had 21 points, 9 rebounds, a block, and assists, and I think he had like 4 assists.
Okay.
Kid can do it all. He's more of a small forward for us. I really like teaming him up with Grant because now you have a lot of offense. And you have size out in the court, and you have a top rookie that I think you can develop with Amp going forward. So that's great. You only got to do the 1 game. I really wish I would have got to see a little bit more of him, but he looked great in his 1 game. And then the only other player that has come up was Jabari, and Jabari obviously is a top pick for a reason. He's averaged 15 points, about 15 rebounds, and 4 assists.
He's good. So. I don't think he'll make it. I mean, again, it's lottery, so the Blazers could get the number 2 overall.
The number 1 pick for all we know.
Could get the number 1 pick. I mean, yeah, the Odin year was kind of that way. We didn't have great odds, but we made it happen. I think Keegan Murray's my favorite. I honestly do. I think he's my favorite pick for we have realistic potential to get him at either pick if we don't trade for Grant. And he seems like a guy who would slot in really well with both size and athleticism for this team to grow. And if you do have to trade Dame in 2 years or Dame, whatever happens with that situation, he's a perfect age to build with Amp and keep moving forward. Plus, I think the 2 of them would pair really well. I don't think we're going to get a shot at Banchero, but we're going to do a lot of homework in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, we'll start talking about that.
Yeah, so if you're curious about that kind of stuff, we will definitely be pounding that hard, and we'll go through every single person and talk about them.
Yeah, I just wanted to update people where we were as far as like where they've been, how they've been doing in the tournament. I know most of you probably have brackets and follow the tournament pretty heavily, but
I believe that the tournament is a really good indicator. I mean, if you look at a guy like Dylan Brooks, who finished off his collegiate career, I thought Kemba Walker really showed you. Obviously, CJ knocking off Duke at Lehigh. There's just all kinds of stuff that you can see translates to the NBA. And yeah, there's the Giannis's that come out of Euro. There's always going to be Luka Doncic's that exist. But I mean
look at John Morant again. He was people
amazing.
Talked about him as a prospect. He came in that tournament and just lit it up.
Yes. That's a good point.
And here we are. I mean, he ended up being like a top 5 or 6 pick, and he's just now he's an MVP caliber. The tournament can tell you a lot about how these guys handle pressure situations, how they fit. I mean, you have to be at your peak teammate, like your team playability.
Yeah,
all that stuff comes into play, so you can get a really good idea about a lot of these guys in those situations. And it's kind of interesting to watch them. We'll probably follow the 2 Duke guys, talk about them next time.
Oh yeah,
because they have a couple more games potentially, and. As far as Banchero and if AJ Griffin's really going to make the Anthony cut here, as far as guys I like,
we'll see.
So, it's been monitoring that.
Yeah, sweet.
And then the last thing, man. I mean, all we really have left is to kind of update people on where we are standing wise and what those picks are going to look like potentially as we kind of fall the last places. Are at 9 games to go. We play Houston tonight, so we're getting down to the nitty gritty. I know the Kings lost today, so we're actually tied with the Kings in wins. Yep, and there it is.
We have 2 less losses than them. Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
Let's talk the West first, because the East really just comes down to the Pacers, who honestly, in my opinion, they're going to lose out. They don't have any big men on that team. Any big men. I mean, Turner's out. They traded Sabonis. Isaiah Jackson looks great, but the dude can't stay on the court. So again, they're probably going to stay ahead of us in the pick range. I think Detroit and Orlando have that pretty much locked up, and the Rockets have their pick locked up as the best odds, most likely, right? So there's already 4 teams. So now you're really kind of looking at that potential 5-6 spot, and that's where it kind of gets into the Kings,
Spurs,
and us. So.
And we need the Spurs to win because we need them to knock the Pelicans down a notch. So if you're a Blazers fan that's rooting for the tank, I mean, you're rooting for the Spurs. You're unfortunately rooting for the Lakers.
Beat the Pelicans tonight. They just beat the Pelicans today, so that caught them up.
That's huge.
So yeah, we want the Spurs to. If the Spurs can somehow pull this off and knock out the Pelicans, I will take back all the DeJounte Murray crap I talked about him making the All-Star.
He's incredible.
As a bad seed, which just doesn't happen very often.
He's
So
so
rooting
good.
for it, CJ. I feel like him and Dame are texting like, "Hey, CJ just missed a couple of those shots late in the game." you know.
Yeah, one final thank you to Portland.
I feel like that's something that needs to happen. We've given him
Sure.
his career. He can at least get us some better pick for him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I agree with you. I think the Pacers are going to lose out. Obviously, we have no chance to catch some of the other teams, but I think the Kings are somebody to watch because the Blazers are right there with them, and then obviously we're rooting for the Spurs.
Yeah, the Pelicans and the Spurs are going to be one of the funner things to watch, and that's the biggest thing for Portland to watch coming up the last couple of weeks. Because, I mean, the Pelicans not making the play-in are great. If the Pelicans somehow sneak in, well, not somehow sneak in, but I mean they're in there now. But if they hold on, the worst case scenario is that both the Pelicans and the Spurs make it, and the Lakers get bumped. I don't think the Lakers are very good, but I also don't think LeBron James and Anthony Davis are going to lose a play-in tournament.
Come on.
I don't think the league would let them. I feel like
no.
I feel like if they get in the league, it's going to make sure that they get that 8th spot, right?
Absolutely.
But on the off chance that they don't make it and the Spurs and the Pelicans pass them, I mean, we're talking half a game right now with about 10 to go. Now I think the Pelicans have a real legitimate shot. Like, I think they can take care of the Spurs. I know the Spurs just beat them tonight, but I think they could beat the Spurs, and I just don't know about the Clippers. I assume that Minnesota is going to lock up the 7th seed. I just think Minnesota is better than the Clippers right now. Paul George is starting to go into – he's doing 4-on-4s. He's about ready to come back, so – Paul George is probably a week and a half, and I think he stays out of the play-in tournament. I think he would come back maybe middle of the first round if they were to make it. So they really don't have anybody that scares you. Reggie Jackson, maybe. As far as that, so the Pelicans could have a legit shot if they had to deal with the Spurs and the Clippers to getting that playoff spot and screwing Portland out of Jerami Grant.
Yeah, we'll see. We need things to go to break that way if we're going to have any chance. Because, like you said, if we only get one pick in this upcoming season, that's going to make for a tumultuous offseason. I think it's going to be really tough to build around Dame and give him assets with one pick. Bad news.
I mean, unless you really think Anthony Simons is Lord and Savior.
He's the truth.
I just don't. So that's what we're gonna monitor. It's pretty much where we are with things. We just wanted to give people another update. We told you we would. I think next couple of weeks, obviously, just going to be monitoring the last couple of games. Our next pod will be really just locking up kind of the odds for Portland, as we really should have an idea of where they're going to be with a couple games left.
Yep.
And obviously we'll check back in on the Duke players to see where they've been. And then it's really just going to start coming down the off-season stuff. We're going to get the draft primer. We're going to start talking, we'll probably cover some more of the NBA off-season and stuff like that for kicks and giggles. But that's about it. I mean, I don't really have much else to say on that subject.
No, just follow, like, sub.
Yep, do the follow, like, sub. We appreciate the support. Check us out on Twitter. We appreciate the engagement that we've had. It helps us out with these pods. It gives us questions. Some of you guys have been really helpful with that. And at this point, we'll just talk to you guys probably about a week or so.
Yep.
And we'll kind of see where things are at that point.
All right. Just like that.
Boom. We out. Good to see everyone.